That's an interesting selection for summer reading, Jeff.
Well, it's an old copy of the manual of the United Church of Canada. It is interesting. It's got all the policies and procedures. It got guidelines for how congregations should organize themselves, make decisions, deal with differences of opinion. It's got everything in it.
It's kind of like this week's gospel reading.
I don't think so.
You don't?
No, in Matthew's passage, Jesus is talking to his disciples, saying that if members of the church sin against one another, have a problem with one another, then they... Oh.
That's right. He tells them that they should talk to the other person, and if they won't listen, then they should take a couple of other people with them. And if they still won't listen, then they should tell the entire church community what's happened.
Guess it is kind of a conflict resolution procedure.
Looks like it, although biblical scholars point out that there wasn't a thing called church at that time, just Jesus and a few of his disciples wandering from village to village.
That's right, but Matthew's gospel wasn't written until 40, 50 years after Jesus' resurrection, so there were church communities in existence by then.
So the writer of Matthew wanted to draw on Jesus' teachings from earlier to provide a kind of a manual for the church of his own age.
Maybe so, but it's got some pretty harsh sounding procedures in it.
Well, like what?
Well, it says that if the offending person won't listen to the church, then the church community should treat that person as if they were a Gentile or a tax collector. It sounds to me like they're saying just avoid them altogether.
I suppose the question for us is, how did Jesus treat Gentiles or tax collectors?
Yeah.
Some of Jesus' critics accused him of eating with tax collectors and sinners. He shared lunches with people that others found undesirable. But Jesus didn't think anyone was undesirable by God.
So the purpose of us talking to somebody we're in conflict with is what? To make them become our friend?
Well, maybe the main purpose is to keep our hearts open. Maybe it's to keep us aware that we share a humanity, that everyone is created in the image of God and is a child of God.
Well, if so, then the passage is just as relevant today as it was when it was written. We certainly need to keep our hearts open today. Look at everything that's going on. Racism, stigmatizing groups because of COVID outbreaks, political tweets that promote fear and distrust of anyone who doesn't support a particular leader or policies. Still seem very accomplished at sinning against others and just creating divisions.
Manuals and policies are important, but deeper than that is an openness to God's love, God's grace, God's peace amongst us, between us, and within each of us.
Trying to heal conflicted relationships or reconcile opposing personalities is not easy. May not always happen. But you're right, we can't close our hearts to the Christ that lives in each one of us. We can't close our love to the love of God that resides in each of us.
Jesus shared meals with the poor, the strangers, the people with whom no one else wanted to share a meal. Jesus healed those whom others excluded from their communities. Jesus welcomed those whom others walked away from. How did Jesus treat the sinners and the tax collectors? With God's love.
So how should we treat others?
With God's love.
With the love of God that created us to embody and to express God's amazing grace and love.
Thanks be to God.
Amen.
And amen.